the 3D printed gun movement has survived the downfall of its charismatic founder, a major defeat at the Supreme Court, and involvement in one of the most talked about crimes of last year.
From the fatal shooting of the United Healthcare CEO.
Against Luigi Mangione, the man accused of murdering a healthcare executive.
Meanwhile, the guns have gotten good. Really good. Today's hobbyist gun makers are creating better and better weapons that are easier and easier to make, including some with wildly creative designs. There's anger and passionate disagreement about strategy, law, copyright, and leadership.
Cody Wilson is a thief, a federal informant, and a pedophile.
Most of the cool stuff he does, he just steals from other people.
Why do I have to deal with this projection? If you have evidence, present your evidence.
But in the meantime, this technology is fundamentally undermining the power of the state to control our access to firearms.
Americans will soon be able to make 3D printed guns.
State lawmakers tried to pass a bill banning manufacturing a gun at your home.
Blocking a gun rights organization from publishing blueprints.
And what I can't figure out is why more people aren't talking about it. Is gun control finally dead?
Okay, so for our first build, I guess we're going to do the Glock-like handgun, which you've helpfully printed out in Reason Orange for us.
A few months ago, I spent an afternoon in Alex Holliday's workshop putting together 2 3D printed guns. We had to put about $6 worth of filament into the 3D printer to generate this mold in the shape of a pistol frame. It's still just a block of plastic, but according to the Federal Gun Control Act of 1968, this is already a real firearm because ATFE guidelines say frames like this require serial numbers to be sold.
What can people feel comfortable and confident doing at home without getting a visit from the ATFE?
So, on the federal landscape, there is nothing illegal about building a firearm for personal use.
Your printer, your gun. Unless Alex and I happen to be in Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Washington, Oregon, New York, or Rhode Island. There, we would be committing a felony and could face up to 10 years in prison.
Okay, so we're in Florida, so we're pretty much in the clear, I assume.
Everything is golden here. And
the question of whether or not it's legal to make your own gun is complicated not only by geography, but by how it's put together. 3D printed firearms are just one type of ghost gun, a term that refers to any firearm without a serial number. Politicians have embraced this label because it sounds spooky and dangerous.
A ghost gun.
Ghost gun.
Ghost gun.
Ghost gun.
Ghost guns can be purchased on the internet and assembled at a kitchen table. They can be bought without a background check.
While 3D printing your own frame remains legal at the federal level and in most states, the Supreme Court ruled in 2025 that a different type of ghost gun, in which you order a kit online to put together at home, can be regulated by the federal government. That means if you buy a kit, you need a background check, and the gun needs a serial number. The ruling has pretty much wiped out the gun kit market. Meanwhile, 3D printed gunsmithing remains mostly legal, and it's booming. Next, we had to insert all the little parts that turn this cheap piece of plastic into a killing machine.
Okay.
Yep.
All
So
right.
now we'll do a quick function test. So pull the trigger.
Okay.
Then hold the trigger and pull the slide again. Let the slide go. Now release the trigger. Now pull the trigger. So we've simulated an entire cycle of fire, and it works in every position the way it's supposed to.
Okay.
So did not malfunction.
Look, Ma, we made a gun.
Assembling an AR-15 was more complicated.
And so, I already got started there. Just gonna knock these weird baby arm things off it and get started the same way as last time, right?
Exactly the same.
Okay.
But with Alex's help, I got through that one too.
And then this pin will retain that. Perfect.
Okay.
Good to go.
All right. So this is the one that's going to scare the shit out of people to see that we just built. Should we be frightened that people are just cranking these out in their garage?
Not likely. I mean, people have been cranking them out in their garages for 40 years now.
Yeah.
Homemade firearms date back to the American Revolution. The colonists fought off a professional army using factory-produced muskets with rifles put together by independent gunsmiths. And gun magazines were instructing readers on how to do custom builds long before 3D printing was a thing. The Unabomber not only made his own bombs, but his own gun as well. What's changed is that you don't need much technical expertise or specialized tools anymore to produce much higher quality guns than the Unabomber's rickety pistol. It shoots, but guns are already fairly easy to get for most people in most states. Why take the time to build a gun that you have to test yourself when shops and shows are open for business? The 3D printing gun community is dominated by hobbyists like Alex, who love the craft. The 3D handgun we built needed some tweaking to keep the magazine from falling out.
So one of those guns bending problems.
Yeah.
So under normal circumstances, we take this back inside, fiddle with it some more, and then make that work.
Still, some people opt for 3D printed guns because they can't pass a background check or because they live in a state where buying a firearm at a gun shop is impossible. There were 26 ghost guns recovered at crime scenes in California in 2015. That number climbed to more than 12,000 in 2022. A 2023 ATF report notes a 1,600% increase in homemade guns at crime scenes over a 6-year period. But 3D printed guns aren't only or even mainly used by criminals.
This empowers everyone. It doesn't matter what your motivation is. It's empowering everyone, be it, a shooter or, a guy who's in the suburbs of Chicago who lives in a rough neighborhood and needs to protect his home.
Ghost gun issue is a crisis in this state and country. You all know that.
Unmarked, unregistered, and completely untraceable firearm.
Fastest growing gun violence menace in the nation.
Someone on a terrorist list could purchase one of these guns.
3D printed gun making is mainly a creative endeavor. It sparked a renaissance in gun design. Hobbyist makers are reimagining what firearms look like.
I can make whatever I want with this. See on the wall behind me, there's quite a few pieces that are pretty custom. There's people around the community who specialize in trying to clone guns from video games, like sci-fi video games.
Holiday runs Control Pew, which tests and reviews online gun designs, creates video tutorials, and provides step-by-step instructions for how to assemble guns at home.
3D printing is a rapid prototyping system.
This married couple go by Spez and Lizzie. They met through an online 3D gun printing forum.
I bought this machine right back here for $200. Within 2 hours of it showing up to my house, I was able to 3D print a gun. Now that this have the ability to have this in every home in America, it just leaves everyone to be an inventor.
Zach Clark, a social media director for the National Association for Gun Rights, says 3D printing has made inroads in the traditional gun world.
You're starting to see, 3D printed developers at gun shows doing presentations and stuff. That was not the case 3-4 years ago. Nobody was interested. So that's definitely developing.
Technology has a steady track record of exceeding the speed in which the federal government or even state governments can adapt to the new capabilities. And perhaps that's a good thing.
David Carpenter founded Aves. He started off selling these tiny metal parts, called rails, that are needed to complete a homemade 9mm Glock-style pistol, the semi-automatic handgun that is America's most popular firearm.
When we began selling them, we sold 2 or 3 rail kits per day, and now we do dozens of orders, thousands of orders a month.
Carpenter has expanded from a single machine to an entire warehouse full of machines and components. The market for DIY gun parts is exploding.
You could directly draw the correlation that every single one of those rail kits does end up as a printed firearm. There are quite literally thousands of printed frames out there.
We tried out several of his homemade or modified handguns, rifles, and even a tiny but powerful switch he manufactured for his Glock.
This little thing right here turns this into a machine gun.
This is considered a machine gun conversion device. And under ATF rule, this is a machine gun.
And not that you all would do this, but theoretically, this is not something that looks incredibly difficult to make.
It's not that difficult to make. It is relatively minor machining.
Inserting this tiny piece of metal in a Glock is a federal crime, and Carpenter is allowed to do it only because he's a licensed firearms dealer. But the ease with which this small hack makes a semi-automatic pistol so much more deadly underscores how difficult it is to regulate hobbyist gunsmithing.
The problem with these is that they're for sale through illegal means. They're manufactured in China, and you can buy them online and have them brought illegally into the country.
When gangs started using this tiny piece of metal to turn their Glocks into machine guns, California lawmakers decided to ban all Glocks.
Backers of the law saying cops are the only ones who should have automatic weapons.
No gun sold in California should be one screwdriver away from becoming one.
That was also the logic behind the 2025 Supreme Court decision that transformed the DIY gun space. In a 7-2 ruling, the High Court found that the federal government can regulate gun kits that require less than an hour of assembly and only common tools, like screwdrivers, jigs, and drill bits. Following that decision, major online kit sellers like Polymer 80 shut down. These kits were the majority of America's ghost gun market. Polymer 80 had sold over 200,000 unserialized kits in California over a 6-year period. But the federal government has nothing to say about the gunsmithing that Alex Holiday is doing with 3D printers. To control this part of the ghost gun market, the government would have to ban or regulate the printers themselves, or more likely try to outlaw distribution of the CAD files that hobbyists trade on platforms like the Catalog, with which Holiday is affiliated. Holiday believes that such a ban would violate the First Amendment because those files contain nothing but information. It's an argument crypto-anarchists made in the 1990s when the government tried to ban encryption. Code is speech. In the meantime, the printers keep going burr. Clark sees the Supreme Court decision as part of a broader regulatory crackdown and says it's part of a long-term strategy.
A lot of normal gun owners will look at 3D printing and they'll say, why do I have to care about this? Because I can just go buy a gun. It's neat, it's interesting, but like, why do I care? But they don't realize they've been pushing for serialization of all firearms parts for decades now. They say they want to do it now because of 3D printing, because of ghost guns, but they wanted to do this forever. And their goal on that has always been that they want to attack the secondary market. They want to make it harder to get repair kits. They want to make it harder for you to exchange your barrel.
When does a gun become a gun? What exactly is a common tool? When does assembly become a crime? Cody Wilson has spent the last decade fighting in court to force answers to these questions. The controversial founder of Defense Distributed first launched 3D printed guns into the world in 2013 when he unveiled a plastic pistol called the Liberator and declared gun control dead.
If it's simply a fact that the internet serves guns now, this is just a point of political life.
Wilson leveraged his newfound media fame to push forward his radical crypto-anarchist philosophy, arguing that gun laws were illegitimate and obsolete.
The debate is over. The guns are downloadable. The files are in the public domain. You cannot take them back. You can adjust your politics to this reality. You will not ask me to adjust mine.
But he suffered a major public downfall after his arrest in Taiwan for paying for sex with a 16-year-old who'd posed as a legal adult on a hookup app. He'd later returned to the helm of Defense Distributed after striking a plea deal that cleared his felony record in 2022. But to this day, he remains a polarizing figure in the movement. Several of the gunsmiths we talked with didn't want to discuss him at all.
Yeah, I really don't like him. Personally, it's nothing, you know.
What is your view of Defense Distributed?
Ooh, that's that voice gotcha question again. I need a coffee for this one. Give me a second. You're gonna put this part in the interview, aren't you? It'll be like, he paused for a significant amount of time to think about this answer. I don't really want to comment on Cody, to be honest.
Others expressed open disdain.
Cody Wilson is a thief, a federal informant, and a pedophile.
So we paid him a visit at Defense Distributed headquarters in Austin, Texas, so he could respond to the critics and share his latest plans to challenge the government's attempts to regulate ghost guns.
Hey, Cody. Have a seat.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Are we shaking hands?
Sure.
You know, in large part, Biden won this ghost gun fight. I think in the ways that mattered, if not to him, to whoever was behind it. And so ghost guns, as we've understood them, they still exist. You can still make your own gun. A lot of the stuff is still there, but the kits and the commerce, I mean, a lot of that is dead.
Defense Distributed is poking the beast as usual with the G80 handgun kit, which Wilson maintains is Supreme Court approved because it complies with the arbitrary legal standard of taking more than an hour to assemble with uncommon tools. Wilson says the point is to force the government to issue rules instead of making up gun regulations on the fly and leaving DIY gunsmiths in legal limbo. The High Court ruling was in a case called Bondi v. Vanderstock, so Wilson is marketing his G80 handgun as Vanderstock compliant.
Vanderstock is about, hey, where do we draw the line on when a receiver becomes a receiver, when a gun is a gun? Can you define a collection of parts or an unfinished receiver at some state of manufacture where it is considered a firearm? And they say, we don't have to draw the line, but we know basically when we see it.
The federal government's crackdown on ghost guns began under Biden, but has continued under the Trump administration. Wilson says the feds have recently tried to stop Defense Distributed from pursuing its legal fight with email correspondence clarifying what is and isn't legal. That didn't sit well with Wilson, who says he won't trust anything but an actual ruling issued by an actual judge.
Okay, well, they say, you know, rather than settle this thing in court, we're happy to take a sample submission. We'll give you our opinion about it. I don't want your opinion about it, ATF. I want a court's opinion about it. I want an Article 3 judge's opinion about it. Because your opinion, by your own admission, holds no weight. I'm not gonna play your fucking little game.
The Trump administration has pushed bump stock bans, mass arrests of unpermitted gun owners in DC, and red flag laws to take away firearms without due process.
If all of a sudden any official in government can say, I don't think you're capable of having a firearm, what would stop the red flag laws from being misused?
Trump is not pro-gun. He is not. He banned bump stocks. He has actively pushed gun control this year.
In 2018, Trump tweeted that he was looking into 3D plastic guns.
The Trump administration has a relationship where they would like to market friendliness with the NRA and friendliness with the gun-owning public. It's one thing to stump for it. It's another thing to be in power and realize, oh, okay, political violence is now actually kind of turned up, in part because you can 3D print a gun.
So is stringent gun control just the latest in a long line of left-wing policies now championed by the MAGA GOP? It's partly that 3D gun printers have always been outcasts in the gun rights movement. And it's partly that there's been a push within the MAGA movement to do something following the murder of Charlie Kirk and the attempt on Trump's life.
Of course leftists would be more comfortable with the immediate popular form of violence, or like divine violence or something. Of course, that's to be expected.
In another 30 years, we see the far left become the pro-gun party. Yeah. And maybe the right goes, oh, we've gone too far.
Holliday says he's seen a surge of leftists coming into the 3D gun printing space.
I think a lot of it falls in line with like the younger left becoming more and more gun friendly in general. Like there's a very vocal left component, like hard left component to the 3D printed gun space.
The shooting of armed progressive activist Alex Preddy by a Border Patrol agent is the latest high-profile example of armed resistance on the left. That prompted Trump to tell the press that Preddy shouldn't have been carrying a gun if he didn't want to get shot.
Do you agree with the assessment from some of your own officials that Alex Preddy is a domestic terrorist or an assassin?
Well, I haven't heard that, but certainly he shouldn't have been carrying a gun.
Wilson says the politics of gun control are already completely scrambled. In reaction to a series of mass killings by transgender shooters, the Trump administration even floated an all-out ban on transgender gun ownership.
They are medically pathologizing conditions of firearm ownership or firearm ownership itself. And I'm not saying the trans shooter issue isn't an issue. You're not crazy to notice the pattern. But to me, the trans phenomena is itself like a motif for all of our revolutions, not just the sexual revolution. There's a sexual confusion, there's a political confusion.
Luigi Mangione, who's accused of gunning down United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, allegedly used a 3D printed gun.
I've said for years there's going to be a prominent shooting with a 3D gun and that'll do it. That was Mangione, and it didn't happen.
Wilson says the reaction to that killing reflects our cultural confusion.
I find the Mangione shooting to be almost identical in its implications as any of this trans shooting stuff. And in a way, Luigi Mangione is a trans shooter because he's politically disoriented. I mean, Baudrillard calls it trans-political.
Mangione was celebrated by some leftists, but he was also the Ivy League son of a wealthy country club owner, and his apparent interests ran the gamut from the Unabomber Manifesto to podcasts from wellness influencer Andrew Huberman and the nonpartisan writer and illustrator Tim Urban.
At the end of these revolutions, it's funny, like when we're told, wow, you can do anything you want with that. You're actually left with a kind of confusion. Luigi Mangione's biggest issue was, apparently, he didn't know if he had free will or not. He was worried he had become some kind of NPC, and it's almost as if he needed some outside event to just prove to himself that he had any kind of agency.
But so what appeal would you make to just the conservative, generally gun-friendly person who is feeling uncomfortable?
I don't think these people will listen to me. And they're almost within their rights, discursively, to want stronger institutions, to want Trump and these people to cross the Rubicon and to protect them and all this stuff. But, to me, I just try to be immune to the propaganda. All right, I'm not going to be, persuaded into limiting or cabining our right to bear arms.
Wilson, as usual, is at war with everyone. He's battling the federal government in court, and he's countersued members of the Catalog, including Alex Holiday. At issue are gun files that Wilson's online library DefCAD hosts, some of which designers have ordered him to remove under threat of copyright infringement, which they claim exposes him to up to $37.5 billion in liability.
He's selling other people's shit.
The main thing is people are putting stuff out for free for everybody to use, and then Cody takes it and puts a paywall behind it.
There's a segment of this movement that really does not like you, and they believe that you are overly litigious, that you try to bring people, that you try to take down fellow gun makers and competitors. What's your response?
Pure projection. Did I bring a copyright suit? Did I try to take, if they wanted to settle a question of law, they could have brought it as a question of law and not tried to shut down my companies. And overly litigious, I'm sorry, that's the pot calling the kettle black.
You're saying they hit first?
Not even. I'm saying these people confuse pathos with ethos. It's like, how is it not noble to simply oppose? If you sue me, how is it not noble to oppose you? No. Of course it is, and you should expect me to oppose you.
Wilson fundamentally disagrees with the concept of copyrighting gun designs. As he put it in his Black Flag white paper, his early gun files used open source licenses because they frustrate the state and world government attempts to control 3D gun files.
Everybody knows registration of your firearms is that prelude or that first step toward confiscation. We all know this. Well, how does that not apply to registering your 3D printed gun files with the federal government? Of course, it's a mistake to ask for and to create a registration system with the government for your 3D printed gun files. It's noxious. It's obnoxious. Now, I'm not saying you can't morally do it, okay? But to act like it's the way or something is patently ridiculous. It's I don't know how to disclaim it enough.
I think they feel like it's just the right thing to do. If I worked hard and I created this design and I don't want you hosting it, you should take it down.
Say that. These people never said that to me.
Yeah.
They never said it. They never asked for it to be taken down from my website.
Right.
Say that. Say you want it taken down. And you know what? Probably at this point, it's a little late to ask.
There is infighting in the 3D printing space. I'm not sure if you're aware of that.
I've heard a thing or two about it.
But it seems like that's a common thing in the firearms industry. We can't help but eat our own, it seems. I think that's just human nature in general.
The ugly personal and legal battles aside, and despite the big loss at the Supreme Court, the gun printing movement is growing fast, and not just in America. In Myanmar, poorly armed rebels resisting a 2021 military coup were spotted using the FGC-9, short for Fuck Gun Control, widely considered to be the first fully functional homemade 3D printed gun requiring no specialized parts, just a printer, a pipe, and some salt water.
The government had all the guns, the police had all the guns. So what did they do? They turned to 3D printing, they turned to files that had been produced by our community, the FGC-9 primarily.
According to one report, the printed guns were used in the early phases to train insurgents and in guerrilla-style ambushes where they could then pilfer better weapons. Another found that the FGC-9 is proving itself through the test of battle, setting a blueprint for how under-equipped and underfunded rebellious groups can wage a successful armed movement against better-equipped government forces.
The rebels, they started with 3D printed guns and they were fighting a effective, second-class military, a regional power. And they have them on the back ropes now. But they really did start off with pipe shotguns and 3D printed FGC-9s. That was the beginning of the movement. They fought their way up to this using those.
This idea that a ragtag group of rebels can resist a professional military using guerrilla tactics and homemade firearms is why 3D printed gun advocates see their movement as a vital check on tyranny. This technical innovation, they believe, has made America's Second Amendment global and unstoppable.
The purpose of the Second Amendment of resisting a tyrannical government, you can do that with 3D printed guns because there's people in Myanmar, they're doing it right now, and they're winning. And they started by printing guns in basements.
What is the meaning of the Second Amendment?
It's definitely hunting. That's what the Founding Fathers meant for us to do with the Second Amendment, was hunt deer.
Yeah, it mentions big game in there.
Yeah,
I believe.
big game,
right.
Small game. Squirrels were a big problem during the Revolution, The purpose of the Second Amendment is quite literally the means to acquire and keep a way to defend yourself. And in my opinion, that is pretty much where it ends. It is a means to defend yourself.
Okay.
Now, what you're defending yourself against is where the interpretation comes up.
Behind the Defense Distributed headquarters sits a gravesite. On the tombstone are the words, American Gun Control. But is gun control really dead? The government can regulate kits out of existence, so makers will adapt their methods. They're getting more innovative, more reliable, and the guns are more numerous. If Alex Holiday were in New York, he might go to prison. A federal court just ruled that Cody Wilson must continue blocking IP addresses originating in New Jersey from accessing his online gun library to comply with state law. California recently filed a suit against the Gatalog seeking the same outcome there. But even so, homemade gun makers are hard to catch.
Gun control can never die because it lives in the hearts of men. No, gun control is not dead, it's undead. Gun control is undead. And we just keep killing it.
Give gunsmiths an internet connection, a printer, and some tools, and there's no stopping them. If I can build a gun, so can most people. Governments can make gun printing inconvenient, but as the crypto-anarchist gun builders have emphasized, once an idea surfaces on a decentralized network, censorship becomes virtually impossible. You can't stop the signal.